Good day, everyone. Try and make this short and sweet so that we can get on to other business. I'm here with my partner Brandon Scran, and we run WeeStreem, and we are live streaming as we speak right now. So just want to go over a couple of things. You'll notice that some of you on your desk in front of you have a little camera there. Please do not play with the cameras; they're fixed in position. So we prefer if you didn't move them around and what have you. Another thing you will want to know is the cameras that are in front of you are only shooting video. Our only audio source is that camera over there that has a big microphone on it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about whispering back and forth that is going to be picked up by the camera or what have you. Those cameras in front of you are only shooting video. Okay? One thing that you do need help with though is audio. All of you have microphones in front of your mouth. So there's nothing more we can do to get a microphone closer to you. We need to rely on you to turn your microphones on and speak into them. One thing I would suggest is let us tell you if you're speaking too loudly. So always try and project, always try and get nice and close to the microphone. And as you can see, I'm close to the microphone and I'm yelling really loud, and it still sounds fairly clear. So project, get yourself nice and close to the microphone, and make sure it's on. Okay, because it's going to stink if you're really making that good point, or if it's back and forth and we're only getting one half of the conversation. But other than that, if you ever have any questions, feel free to ask us at any time, and we'll be happy to answer any of them. But beyond that, have fun, and I know a lot of you are going to enjoy watching yourselves when you get home tonight.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, and first on our agenda, councilors, are there any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I'll move on to our minutes. Minutes of the regular council meeting held on March 15, 2016. Councilor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Longo, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on March 15, 2016 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes of the special council meeting held on March 15, 2016. Councilor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Ugolini, that the minutes of the special council meeting held on March 15, 2016 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I'll move on to my mayor's report, and it's sort of brief. Live streaming of Thorold City Council meeting begins tonight. It can be accessed through the municipal website at www.thorold.com. Live streaming of meetings will be for a 3-month trial basis, and we will and we would like to hear your feedback. Please forward your comments to the Clerk's Department by calling 905-227-6613 or by emailing clerk@thorold.com. On March 20th, I had the opportunity to attend an open house at Lockefusel Funeral Home. It was a very good opportunity to get to meet the new owners, Kelly Vidico and Rick Westlake. March 21st, I attended the official opening of the Seaway and Canal, and the first captain through the walk was presented with the traditional top hat. We would like to extend best wishes to the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation, executive and staff, as well as all the mariners and Seaway operations staff for a safe and successful shipping season. The 10th annual runway recognition gala was held on March 29th. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend as I was at the United Away Awards that night. But I'd like to offer my congratulations to all this year's inductees and award winners. Thank you for everything you have contributed to sports in Thorold. On March 30th, I attended the Thorold Community Activities Group Annual General Meeting held at the Nick Vassiano Center. It was a great evening that brought together TCAG staff, the community, our local MPs, and Vance Badaway. I congratulate the TCAG for all their hard work and for the excellent services they provided to residents of our city. Effective Monday, April 25th, there will be a change to Thorold Bus Route 22 in Thorold South. The route will be extended south to Ellenburg and Port Robinson East. However, midday trips will be discontinued. For full bus route information, please visit www.yourbus.com or www.thorold.com. And that concludes my report. And we have no presentations or any delegations for this portion of our meetings. Under communications, items referred to council. Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Neal, that the resolution received from the town of Aurora, dated February 2nd, 2016, requesting the Government of Ontario to limit the jurisdiction of the Ontario Municipal Board to questions of law or process, and that the Government of Ontario be requested to require the OMB to uphold any planning decisions of municipal councils unless they are contrary to the processes and the rules set out in legislation, be received and supported.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any speakers to the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. List of committee minutes, correspondence from volunteer committees. Councilor Longo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Sharon that the communications on the list of correspondence 5D, minutes correspondence from volunteer committees be received for information purposes and filed.
Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Reports, correspondence for the region of Niagara. Councilor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Sharon. Excuse me, that the communications on the list of correspondence, 5E, reports correspondence from the region of Niagara be received for information purposes and filed.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Items for information purposes, Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Sharon, that the communications on list of correspondence 5F be received for information purposes and filed.
Thank you, Councilor. Items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call. Sorry. I was looking
I
at.
just thought we were going to go right to this meeting without any comment.
Councilor Neal and Councilor Ugolini.
F5, the MMM Group Limited, the bridges that they're going to rehabilitate. There's one bridge, and that's the Q Road Bridge, that the 406 that they're going to rehabilitate. I'm just wondering when they're designing and that they maybe could put sidewalks on both sides of that bridge, and that's what they're redesigning to help us with our trail going along the Q Road.
Okay. I have Mr. Dunsmore may have some answers for you right away.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We've met with the Ministry of Transportation regards to that bridge, primarily because we're urbanizing TQ Road at the same time. Their intent is not to modify the platform at all. If we wanted them to put sidewalks on the south side of the bridge, we would have to pay for it. But they are willing to accommodate some design modifications to their bridge to allow for the multi-use trails across the bridge.
Maybe, excuse me, maybe we might just find out how much it might cost for us to go ahead and do that. At least get them to design it in their design, and then we can see whether we want to go ahead and do it or not.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what do you need, the multi-use trail?
Yes.
Okay.
I have Councilor Levy, then Councilor Whalen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager of engineering. On the north side, do they plan on expanding the sidewalk and making a bike lane? Is that going to be part of the process for that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they are going through the process of evaluating whether that's a possibility or not. Right now, there's 1.5 meter sidewalk on the north side, and then with some lane realignment, you could probably get about 3 meters worth of room over there. We met with them and asked them to evaluate options in terms of doing a grade separated, continuing the grade separated multi-use trail across there, or having it all at the same grade as the road at that point in time, doing a line painting process. They're evaluating right now.
Thank you.
Do you have Councilor Whalen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned urbanization of that overpass. Can we get a cost factor also? Like, there's no sense in us putting the sidewalks on either end without something to connect in the middle. It's not too much to ask for that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is certainly the design that they're looking at, and it will come with some cost.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm just going to stop right now, Kevin. I see you bouncing back and forth. Sir, are you getting the audio okay?
Yeah, audio sounds great, and it's just him and I just talking, sharing ideas just to make sure we shoot it the best way possible.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, everything's great, guys.
Okay, I'll call a question on those items. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Reports. We're at the reports. Minutes of the General Committee meeting held on March 15, 2016. Councilor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Whalen, that the minutes of the General Committee meeting held on March 15, 2016 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes of General Committee meeting held on March 22nd, 2016. Councilor Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Sharon, that the minutes of the General Committee meeting held on March 22nd, 2016 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councilor. Again, are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Other business. Councilor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've noticed there's been some review of long-term care from a regional perspective. And I won't go through all the reports in that, but I noticed there's an imbalance of long-term care facilities, and they're thinking of closing some down in Niagara Lake and moving them to other places. But I don't notice Thorold being in the mix, even though we do not have any long-term care facilities when all the other communities around us do. And so I'm hoping that yourself and Regional Councilor D'Angela would at least look at that and bring that forward to the regional review and maybe come up with a solution for Thorold's particular issue regarding the long-term care.
We obviously need a whole lot of beds.
Yes.
Hundreds. And I will, somewhere along the line, someone's going to have to take a look at the issue and say, hey, let's start building.
Yeah, I agree.
I know they're fully aware of my opinion and Henry's opinion on the issue. We'd like to centralize things a little bit better. And when I say centralize, that means Thorold's in the universe.
Could I put a motion forward that we send a letter or whatever to regional council to have them look at putting a long-term care facility in Thorold, at least to get it on the agenda from the council's perspective.
No, we shall do that. I don't know if it's a regional council we send it to, or, we'll find out. We'll figure it out. It's part of the LINs. CEO has just mentioned it's part of the LINs, so I think that's where we're going. Okay, there's a motion on the floor for a letter to be sent off to the region with regards to long-term care being located in Thorold. That's a motion on the floor. Are there speakers to the motion? I need a seconder, Councilor Wayne. Speakers to the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Still under other business, I have Councilor Longo, Councilor Hanley, then Councilor Pion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor
I'd like to
Dooley.
request a staff report tonight on public transportation in the city of Thorold. More specifically, the Brock University roads that we currently have. And I've spoken to many of my neighbors, residents, citizens of Thorold, and they're concerned about the delivery of bus services that we have. Their main concern, and a concern of mine, is the bus traffic on the secondary residential roads in Thorold. So right now, if you look at the bus routes we have bus transportation on some streets that really don't make sense. Streets like Summers, Kiefer, Abbey, Queen Street North, and our infamous Winterberry Boulevard. If you look at our provider, the St. Catharines Transit, and the service they provide in the city of St. Catharines, it's mainly in a grid pattern, straight line roads, in major arteries. And it seems to be the exact opposite here in the city of Thorold. Although we do use our major arteries somewhat, the buses veer off and then start to meander down our secondary streets. We have some streets that never had buses before this year, and now residents who own properties have buses stopping up to 30 times a day in front of their properties. They have riders lining up for rides 30 times a day in their driveways. One of the streets in Thorold, probably one of the shortest streets in Thorold, Abbey Drive, has over 70 stops a day, or 70 buses going down the road a day. I just think that's the wrong way to deliver bus transportation in the city of Thorold. So what I'd like to do is I made a list of a few things I'd like to include in the staff report, and then I welcome staff to add any other items they'd like to, but I'll just itemize a few things here. I'd like to know our current agreement between the city and the St. Catharines Transit Commission in terms of bus services. I'd also like to know the percentage of our transit budget that's directed towards the Brock bus routes, particularly. Mr. CEO, I have a list of these for you, so you don't have to write them down. I also like to know the contribution by Brock University, either directly or indirectly, for bus service in the city of Thorold. This may go to the Director of Operations, the implications of running transit buses on our secondary residential streets, whether they wear out any faster than running down major arteries. And I guess any other information that staff could prepare for the report. And I'd ask if we could get that report back. I don't know if it's possible, but maybe by the second meeting in May. I think this is an issue council needs to look at, to discuss over the summer, because if we do decide to make changes to it, I think we should get it done before the 2016-2017 school year.
And we need a seconder. Councilor Bayon. Discussion to motion. Councilor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was going to bring this to strategic planning sessions, but besides the routes that Councilor Longo is talking about, we have 2 or 3 subdivisions that are going to be going in our southwest Port Robinson area, and guess what? We have no transportation system there at the present moment. And I think we have to take a look at it, because in the long-range planning of it all, that area is going to have thousands of people in that area. And do we send them down to Welland, or, you know, like, what do we do? And I think that should be part of, maybe part of the report that Councilor Longo is looking at bringing back to council, or to our strategic planning sessions that we're going to have over the next few weeks.
Well, I'll take out my crystal ball, and basically, I would, if we had a real good regional transit system with hubs in Welland, Niagara Falls, and St. Catharines, and probably Brock University, that area would probably be serviced by Welland. You would get a subsidiary bus, secondary bus from the heart of Welland to that area and back. And from there, you can go to Welland, and from that point, you can go anywhere in the Niagara district, the whole Niagara region. And by the time that area even gets close to being built up, we'll probably see that. But it's a good, it's a good long-term vision. So, are there any other speakers to Councilor Longo's motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. May I have Councilor Hanley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items. Excuse me. Yesterday, I heard on the radio that the Liberals have announced $700,000 of funding in regards to the 150 fund. I want to know through you to the appropriate staff, has the city of Thorold been lucky to receive any funds in regards to the 150 fund, federal fund? Through you to Donna, please.
Ms. Calbeck,
Mr.
can you
Mayor?
answer that for us, please?
All of our applications were denied for funding. The federal government received 1,100 applications, and they funded 380 of them. Their list of who they funded should be out by Friday. I followed up with them this morning.
That's why I asked, because I thought, geez, here they were making an announcement. I thought, if anybody had gotten any money, it seems that St. Catharines were the only ones, obviously, to get any money for 3 or 4 projects, 5 projects, I believe, in the city of St. Catharines. Unfortunately, that's the case. I'll have to look at the list, because I'd hate to think that the other 11 municipalities in the Niagara region didn't get any money.
I'll find out. Ms. Calbeck,
The town of Niagara-on-the-Lake received money for a library improvement, and the town of Lincoln received one for their Lions Park. Those 2 were announced in June of last year.
Okay, thank you very much. That's what we
Three
need to know. That.
municipalities are winners.
9 were losers, so 75% are on the outside and 25% are on the inside. This round. Hopefully with the new change to the federal government, maybe things can change in the future. Another item is, I'm going to bring it up early. Last year I had put a request forward that we had excessive amount of picnic tables in the city of Thorold. We distributed through a number of parts of the city. I want to say that it's been well received from all the residents that I've talked to. In regards, I know we received some damage with some other picnic tables, but I'm wanting us to get a little head start this year, because I know that a lot are still in place, whatever, in regards to where they were last year. But I just want to say that let's keep the ball rolling. That stuff, it did encourage residents to come out, and believe me, it was well received from anybody that I talked to in regards to that. Another item is that I've been approached by the residents of Thorold South, several of them, in regards to no washroom facilities at McAdam Park. And what I'm asking staff today to give me the direction I need to take, because in fact, knowing that I'm in the construction business, I've contracted several individuals in regards to the supply of concrete, blocks, bricklayers, plumbing, electrical. And this could be a community project that, as I was the chairman of the South Park Restoration Committee years ago with Freddie Mac, we got the community involved, we got blocks for the dugouts, we got employees that did the roofing, so on and so forth. So I'm asking through Mr. Mayor to appropriate staff member for an order for a community project to go forward. I realize there's liability and insurance, and we've actually done about that, because I can get a rider on my own insurance in regards to it. But I'm wanting direction from the city as to what I need to accomplish or needs to be done in order for us to succeed in this worthwhile community project, that I know we can succeed at it. CBM was, for example, was vacant or absent for the city of Thorold for some years. They're back. I know they're a great corporate partner. They've helped me in the past with projects. I know of electrical, plumbing, concrete finishers, I do it myself. If I needed to, if I could, and I'm just asking through Mr. Mayor, the appropriate staff member, what directions need to be taken in regards to accomplishing this worthwhile project? Because I know that in the past, Fort Robinson's wanting to do a gazebo. We're also looking at that. So I'm wanting some direction so that I'm going to pursue these type of projects with residents of Thorold who wish to accomplish this, is what we need to have done, cross our Ts and dot our Is before I come to council to ask for council support. If I could ask that through you, Mr. Mayor, to the staff members.
And Mr. Sawchuk will give you that answer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can come back with some information to direct you accordingly. I'd just like to bring to your attention, however, that none of our washrooms that exist in the parks now can be left open unattended.
Right.
So they would only be open, available while either, in the cases of Sullivan Park and South Confederation, we give out keys to the TCAG to supervise them when they have activities there. Someone would have to take responsibility for the duration that they're open. We frequently get fires and vandalism. The other thing that we have is if they're unattended, we're concerned with having a hidden spot where activities related to children could go on that we can't safeguard. So just to be aware as we go through that these wouldn't be washrooms that would be accessible all the time. But
I realize that.
we can bring you forward the information that you're.
I realize that, and we'd have to look for some responsibility, but I do know people that are willing or so what to take the responsibility. You know yourself from this past April conference, there were some washrooms in there that unattended. Did you check them out? Did you go in? Hey, it's the new technology that's out there. I don't know if you were there, but there are corporate partners out there that are willing to help us out in needs of what we want to do there. So I appreciate if I get that information, we greatly appreciate it. And one other item, you know, Mr. Mayor, a request has gone out, I just want to mention this, that someone attend the War of the Atlantic, the war on May the 1st. And I put my name forward, I'm going to tell you why. Is that it actually has a passing with somebody that's in the city of Thorold. A gentleman passed away in 2010 in the city of Thorold that died at 100 years old, Bill Simpson. And the fact of the matter is, he immigrated to Canada on that ship on October the 31st, 1924. When he passed away, unfortunately, the people that were held responsible for cleaning his estate were actually going to discard this information, and I actually saved it. And I actually have some memorable pieces from the TSS Athenia that Bill Simpson took here on October 31st, 1924. So I'm wanting to go to let people know I actually got, believe it or not, I'll let people know is that in those days on the ship, you had a bedpan, you know, and you basically done it, and well, he took the bedpan and I got the bedpan at home. And so, and it says right now in TSS Athenia. So just to say, and I'm thinking that, and if people don't know, it was the first ship sunk during the War in the Atlantic that belonged to the Allies in 1939. So I'm more than honored to serve the city on that day, May 1st, in regards to the TSS Athenia, because there is a connection to that boat and the city of Thorold.
Thank you, Councilor. Thanks for attending it, and attending this function on my behalf, and thanks for your enthusiasm for what to do.
You're welcome.
And I have Councilor Pion, still under other business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two issues. Both of them are safety issues. The first one is, I'm sure council is aware of the email we received from a person on Bolton Avenue regarding the fact that their driveway isn't across another driveway, and that people are parking on the other side of the street, so that leaves them almost no room at all to back up. I'm just wondering what process do we need to bring this to council through a report? Does the person who has this concern contact staff about putting in a no parking sign just in that section of road? What steps do we need to take in order to help this person out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Normally, in a situation where we were trying to restrict parking, we would ask for a petition to be signed by a majority of the people on the street. In this case, the resident is identified as a safety issue. I've looked at the situation. I'm not entirely sure I can agree. So my suggestion would be that they get a petition together with the majority of the people on the street and submit it to the engineering department. Okay,
thank you. The second issue is with regard to the bus stop on Towpath Road. As we're all aware, there's a bus shelter there, and for most of the time, the buses stop at the shelter, but recently there have been changes to the route. Especially there is now a bus that goes directly from Towpath straight down St. David's to Brock University. And for some reason, instead of stopping at the shelter, that bus pulls a little bit more forward and stops between the shelter and the fire station. And I've used the bus myself, and the point where they stop, there's a bus stop sign, but there's no sidewalk. There's basically a ditch filled with water. In the wintertime, there's snow piled several feet high there. Not only is it clearly not accessible for anyone in a wheelchair, but even people who are not in a wheelchair sometimes have trouble. I've seen people slip on the ice. There's mud that you have to sometimes navigate in order to get to the bus. I'm just wondering what we need to do. I'm not talking about a whole second shelter. Could the bus be made to stop at the shelter? And maybe that's an issue with too much traffic. Could we at least put a little bit of a concrete area with a bench, and maybe something covering the bench? Something a little safer so people, it's one of the most used buses, and there's people congregating there sometimes in the rain, standing in mud and water.
Council, could I ask for a report that come forward on that issue?
Sure, through you to staff, then maybe we can get a report on what possibilities there are to make that area a little safer and more accessible. Thank you.
And second, I'd like to speak. You want to speak to this? Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, in that respect, I know what the logic is behind. Sometimes there's nobody in the shelter area, and they're both parked up. Maybe we can add that to Councilor Longo's report and find out just what the idea is behind it. They say sometimes you see 3 and 4 buses, other times you see none, and you're still parking. But I think I would imagine it just makes it easier from that to go straight down Towpath up to Albert Street and down St. David. So can we add that to Councilor Longo's report and talk about the logic is behind it?
Report.
But we can add that both to Council Longo's report and carry it under one report coming back as opposed to
So
2.
you're just taking what Councilor Pio wants to do and add it to Councilor Longo's report.
That's correct. If Council Pino will say
So
that.
I'll take it as a friendly amendment and ask, are you okay with that?
As long as I get a report back on what needs to be done, I don't care which report it's in, but yes.
Councilor Longo, you accept that as a friendly amendment on yours?
Yeah, I have no problem with that, as long as we get that report back, hopefully by mid-May.
I'll just call a question on that. All in favor? There's no motion. Okay. I need a seconder to add this to Councilor Longo's report. Councilor Whalen seconds it, and I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councilor Eagle.
2 items, Mr. Mayor, through you. The first item to the Director of Operations, the lines on Kiefer Road. I've been getting a few phone calls on safety concerns. Looks like there's a bike lane now in the middle of the road because the first line was a mistake, so they painted a second line and blacked out the first line. That line now is, the black's gone from the winter. There's 2 lines there. Cars don't know which lane they're supposed to be in. So as soon as weather permits, could we get that looked after?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we will, for sure.
Okay, and the second item through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. Could we get a letter, either sent out by us or get a hold of Life Lab so that people know that the Life Lab is still going to be open for giving blood samples? Because the community doesn't think that's the case. And I think if they know that, it's going to ease a lot of concerns out in the community. So if we could post it on our website or get a hold of Life Labs and get a clarification. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I have a motion on the floor. I'd like to get a report back, from a staff report back on the upstairs at the senior center. I have had a number of, I walked a number of people through. I walked a person through last week. Again, I'll be walking them through next week. Another week, and it's many people interested in putting a medical center up there. And Councillor D'Angelo also has some people interested in it, and then I've had another call of interest. The problem with this place is that I feel it's not rentable. There's there's not a washroom up there, like a washroom on that floor, with an accessible washroom on that floor, and there's no flooring also. And I think the big detraction for this, this area is the fact that although it's a beautiful room, you know, 5,000+ square feet, the detraction is the fact that there's no washroom up there, and it makes it so difficult to rent. Right now, what I'm asking for staff report on what it will cost to supply a public washroom to the upstairs in that building, and also the floor, what it will cost for flooring. So I just want to get a cost right now. Nothing else. I'm not making any commitments of anything till we get to see what it's going to cost. So that's a motion. I'm going to stay right here, but Deputy Mayor Wyland, will you call the question, ask for a seconder?
Can I get a second of Mayor Luciani's motion? Councilor Pion? All in favor? So passed.
Thank you. Okay, is there anything else under other business? Okay, I'll move on to bylaws. Bylaw number 27-216 and 29-216. Councilor Eagley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Neal, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw number 27-216, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of Block B, Plan 26, NP 660, to the owners of 3 Bolton Avenue, and the transfer of easements over Block B, Plan 26, NP 660, in favor of the Corporation of the City of Thorold, Bell Canada, and Hydro One. Bylaw number 29-2016, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Thorold Council meeting held April 5th, 2016, and that the same now be read a first time.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Neal, that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're at the notices of motions. Are there any notices of motions? Seeing none, I'll move to adjournment. Councilor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Whalen, that this meeting hereby be adjourned at 7:12 p.m.
Thank you, Councilor. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we'll move. Council want a break, or do you want to go right into general? Keep going. Keep going. Okay, first off, I call this general committee meeting to order. And I'll ask, are there any conflicts? Councilor Eagley.
Yes, I'd like to declare conflict on item 5, 5I, advertising, arena advertising rights, DOR 2016-23, as I work for Front Row Sports and they were a bidder on the process.
That'll be noted, Councilor, by the clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I also want to declare a conflict on the same item.
Okay, is there a reason?
I am related through marriage to one of the people involved.
Okay, thank you. That'll be so noted also. We have enough people.
Yeah, I'm not declaring conflict. I just wonder if any other councilors having trouble logging into the report.
over here.
I can't do this.
Not
Yeah,
myself.
I don't think
There's too many of us trying to get in at the same time.
We're getting hacked. Because all that technology they want.
It's just circling and not getting in.
Okay, do you want me to
Thank you.
Break till everybody
Around the circle.
gets on. Computers. You still need a minute?
Is anyone else?
I haven't gotten it on there.
same problem.
Everybody's having the same problem.
Not everybody, but not.
I'll call for a 5-minute break.
reset
Until everybody gets caught up.
No, you just got it. Keep it on. Log out and go back in.
Yes.
I had to log out. It's 5 minutes.
We got a bit of a problem. My battery's getting low, and the people who set up do you have an extension?
What battery do you have right now?
No, I got it hurt. I got it hurt. I can't plug it in because the plugs
You
are.
got to plug it for the
Oh, I can power it.
So I talked to
You're
them.
logged out anyways, right?
He said all they give is, what they give is.
How's the face?
All they remove is the lights on the side.
Where's he now? He's good. So I get to do this. I had to log you.
They call him
Good. Does he have a
Because administrative.
He's the face. Used to be the voice, now he's the face.
Yeah, but there you go. I tried logging out, I tried logging back in.
Maria had the same problem.
It kind of makes sense what you're saying, is that because of the dates that
Terry, you're in now.
require them
Terry's in.
I'll talk to what it would take to light that pole. The other thing that comes up is that if you don't cancel that for that intersection, it's going to be done by developers in the very near future. So maybe we can tie all that together, although this is probably more immediate, we have to just put the pole right on the floor. I think GM's is.
Are you in?
Terry, you're in now.
I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
You in?
We got those people lined up.
Am I in on yours or this is mine?
That's yours.
The head and,
Would you work some magic?
and rewired.
You just go ahead and.
When we talked again, so yeah.
I did.
It wasn't too loud. Especially sometimes like-
Oh, I did. I did beforehand.
Volume was a little low, but everything, the quality was fine. The volume.
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
Probably saying they told me 4 o'clock, it's been just like 8 lights. They're saying the Bob Elliott last numbers. The items, which side do you take? Yeah. Same price or?
I know that pitches are changing from time to time. It's just that it was the amount of stones, I was like,
Okay, we have one delegation tonight, and that'll be Ralph Sacco and Tony Gigliotti, owners of Thorold Junior B Blackhawks hockey team, and they want to talk about Director of Operations report, DOR 2016-2022, DOR 2016-22, and that is strictly about, you'll be speaking only to that report. Junior B ice rate for 2016 and 2017. Specifically telling you that's what you requested to speak about, so. Welcome, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you again for allowing us to discuss the report. To discuss the report and the importance of the Thorold Blackhawks in the community, and the recommendation of only increasing the ice rate of 2%. We appreciate that in the report. If passed, this will help our organization to keep the expenses at a manageable by sourcing out the boards to an outside source. In effect, it is the same as increasing our expense to the top.
Mr. Sacco, that's not what you're here to talk about. You're here to talk about DOR 2016-22. It has nothing to do with the boards, or the advertisement on the boards. I think I specifically said that prior to you coming up to the podium. I specifically said that you won't allow you to speak to that. You'll have to come back another time and speak to that. And I think you've already spoken to that the last time you were here, and I can tell you this, and I think I'll ask the clerk for clarification, that once you speak on a subject once, you can't come back and speak on it a second time. Is that true? Is that right? My agenda. Speak to Okay, the clerk has corrected me in terms of my agenda allows you to speak only to that report. Your letter tells us that you also want to speak to the boards for bid. so I have to correct myself. You're allowed to speak to it.
Thank you. Okay, so like I said, so if by sourcing out the wards to an outside source, in effect, that is savings and increasing our expenses to the top rate, the ice rate at the top. The reason being, it will decrease our revenue by approximately what the ice expenses are, which is 35% of our expenses. So before a decision is made on the boards, please consider the spin-off business that we bring to the community. Not having a junior team that has been in existence for over 30 years would be a shame. I hope that the council is not thinking of going in that direction. It has been said that our revenue we bring from the ice rentals can be replaced. We will get into the numbers showing that you would have to rent out all ice rentals at top ice rate, which is not guaranteed. We are in good standings with the city, and our revenue is guaranteed. Please remember, this is local community. The very idea of community comes into being because people like to cooperate with each other. The sense of cooperation begins here, and it leads to stronger relationships, which is led by you, the leaders of the community. So, what we like to discuss, we're going to get into the numbers, and then I'd like to have a discussion on it. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
In front of you, I think Donna handed out a sheet of paper, looks like this, and it breaks down the ice. It kind of broke it down so it's easy to follow. So on the first page, it talks about the new rate. The new rate was going to be charged for our games, basically $75, which is 25 games times 3. We usually take Thursday night, 6:30 to 9:30 is what we normally take, okay? And it shows the cost that we would bring in is $14,304. The current rate, which is the old rate, we would bring in, the city would bring in $9,922.50, and then the proposed 2%, the new rate coming to the city is $10,121. So if you go to the next page, it shows our practices. So we have approximately 70 hours, give or take, and I think that's pretty accurate. Dave can concur on these numbers that I'm making up here. So on practice times, we're bringing in about 9,261. If we didn't have that ice hour, and we were to rent it out to the public or to another service group, we take 330 hours, which are a little bit less, which are 120, and a prime time rate, if you were to rent it out, is 190.72. Would give you a total of $12,015. So, next page talks about our current costs. So this is what we pretty much paid out for 2015. Our practice times, our game times, and the advertising board that we currently have is what we brought in. A total of $28,383.50. So on the lower half, I break it down. On the left-hand side, it shows, and it's kind of fine, it's small to read, full ice rental, $12,855. Now where I got that from is, if you are able to rent out all our practice times, which are 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30, and Dave can answer this too, those times are very difficult to rent out. If you were able to rent out 1 or 2 of those days during the week, which you're probably able to, but not all of them. We take a couple of them. So that's a total revenue you could bring in if you're capable of getting that actual ice sold. The games are left alone at $14,303. Those are Thursday nights, and you pretty much can get full price there, not an issue. And then the new advertising would be $15,000 coming to the city. So on the right-hand side, it shows again, our constant is 28, we're currently bringing in. Then I said, okay, wait a minute. 3:30s, 4:30s is very difficult. I don't know if they're going to be able to rent 2 extra days. So I took that out completely, where you're not able to rent it out. Which I feel accurate, that if you go back and talk to Jerry and find out how many 3:30 he rents out Monday to Friday, he can let you know. I'm just talking 2 of them that we take. The other 3 days are available to write up. These are only the 2 days that we take for practice times. So the dollars coming into the city is 29,303. Again, ours constant is 28,383. So what I'm trying to say is that by going to another user group, a group of Hamilton, let's say, and then if you decide to go with them, you're not necessarily bringing more revenue to the city if we're not using our ice rental that we currently have. And that's why I thought I'd spell it out this way, and it's a little easier to understand where we're coming from. Any questions on the handout?
Any questions, Councilor?
Yeah, so, in conclusion, and talking about all this, so we're talking about this, and we're talking about revenue between $0 to $15,000 that can be generated extra, and not talking about the intangibles that the Blackhawks bring to the community. And some of those intangibles are some of the, we deal with Dan Giacola here, and our team works out with him, and he's been great with us, okay? Also too, again, I mentioned this last time, we deal with an accountant here in town. Also too, we've supported cystinosis for what Dan Giacola has taken on, that bike ride. And, again, Thorold was there. I met Ted and Mr. G. there. Okay. Also, too, the TA, the concessions, which we don't have. That's a spin-off that helps the TAA. And of course, restaurants after games and, people coming out and watching the games before the games and after the games. I know some of the bars our fans, they come and talk to me that they come to. And of course, I know that's info, but of course, Rockos too. Okay, so there's a lot of intangibles that we bring to the table also. So we talk about unguaranteed revenue, or guaranteed revenue, and you have to rent out those ice times if we're not able to ice the team. So I'd like to have a discussion on this, and what you guys think.
Well, period now, our council will be able to ask you questions right now.
Sure.
And then when we call the report up, council will be able to comment. Councilors will be able to comment. You won't be able to comment on that. So I would entertain council to see if there are any questions for our presenters. Councilor Neal.
Yes, your business plan for the future. We're talking about ice rinks, but what is your business plan as far as your hockey team is in Thorold for the future? I've noticed that I believe there's only one player from Thorold on it last time, and probably maybe they're not good enough to be on the team. But what is your focus for the next 3 years on a business plan?
Okay. And I think that's 2 questions. We had actually 3 Thorold players on the team, and the Thorold players that we did put on the team, we paid for the league fees because they were Thorold players. So that's not being said to the community, which we did, so that they could play on our team. And we needed players, and they were good enough to play on the team. So if a player's good enough and they're from Thorold, they're on the team. So we don't turn down Thorold players, that's for sure. So we're paying their league fees. We could easily say, you know what, you can't pay your league fee, we got somebody else who can play.
Thank you.
Councilor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters. Mr. Sanko, can you tell me how much more in dollar figures it's going to cost you if we go to the new rate for you in terms of over last year?
Yeah, that will increase to approximately $13,500 extra expenses, which is 50% of our revenue.
Okay, and if you're unsuccessful, well, if you have no more advertising revenue from the boards, how much money are you going to lose there?
We will lose approximately, I believe, okay, hold on, we'll lose approximately about $15,000. So like I said, we'll be in the same boat. So if you increase the ice rental, right, it goes up 13 to 15, and if you take away the boards from us, our revenue goes down. on our balance sheet.
So about $28,500 difference.
Well, yeah, if you both.
If both happened,
Yes, yes.
And what would happen to the team with numbers like that?
Well, what will happen with the team, basically, which we don't want to do, is we would have to think hard if we can miss the team. And I talked to the OHA about it, and they said they have our support, and I have their support. And until if you can negotiate something, we have the rights to the team.
So if we went with the report that's in front of us, a 2% increase, you're still losing quite a bit of money because you're losing the advertising revenue?
That's correct.
Can you survive with that?
Probably more money out of our pocket, I think.
All right.
But again, we like the team, we like us as a team.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Eberly?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Sacco. Now, non-prime ice, does that stop at 4 o'clock? So when you practice 3:30, 4:30, are you getting charged half non-prime and a half prime?
Ours is consistent, 132, 20. So we practice earlier, we still get our rate, which is 132, 20. So we don't get the 120 rate that's advertised out to people. Our rate's always the same.
Okay, and the other question is that 15,000 you stated on advertising, is that after you pay the city and minor hockey and skating club portion?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one. Why did you not respond to the board advertisement RFP in the proposed time limits, timelines?
Because the reason is we had the board advertising, and we thought this was going out to, and they were seeing who would want to get the board advertising, and then somebody was going to talk to us in regards to what we wanted to do. We didn't just think it was just going to be taken away from us. So that was our misunderstanding. And also, we did call a couple times, and nobody returned our call. So nobody spoke with us.
Maybe staff give me an explanation of, sorry, yeah, sorry, I'll wait for the report. That's all, that's my question. Councilor Hanlon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we move the report forward?
Yes, I need some.
On the motion forward, that we move forward report EOR 2016-22.
All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay,
Just
that's
clarification.
moving forward, but we're still in question period.
Are we moving forward 23 as well? Just two reports?
No, we'll deal with that individually. 23 will be separately.
All right.
Are there any other questions? I'll give you one opportunity to speak. Go ahead.
Just regarding, there was a report, Appendix D in your report from DOR 216-22. You were giving the advertising rights holders for the other municipalities in the area, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Welland, Pelham, and it states what those cities are doing for their junior B teams. It is correct, but not in detail. So with St. Catharines, it says here that they have the advertising rights, which is correct. They also have the canteen snack bar. Niagara Falls is it's a third party that rents out the boards, sells the boards. The junior B and the junior C get subsidized in large amounts. The amount that they had from the previous regime was $60,000. It was renegotiated last year. I don't know what the new rate was for the current owner of the Canucks. Welland does not get any subsidized from the city. Pelham does. They get the canteen currently. Port Erie does not get any advertising rights. The other two cities or junior B teams didn't get back to me on this list, but it is 50-50. Some do support in different ways by giving them rooms, offices, and other things in the rehab facilities. So they're not all specified in here. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of what else junior B teams were getting in the area.
I have that report, I know I read that part myself. Okay, I'll have to ask you to sit down now. We will, we're going to the report now, and your part of the program's over with. Sorry, you have to sit down. DOR 2016-2 has been moved forward. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Whelan. And I need something, staff to highlight the report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendations are that the request by the Thorold Junior B team made as a result of a meeting held on March 21st, 2016, to increase the rate by 2% per hour from $132.20 to $134.84 for the 16-17 season, rather than full rates be approved. And number two, that a budget overrun in the amount of $4,414.52 resulting from the reduction in revenues be approved. This concludes the report.
Okay, speakers to the report have Councilor Hamlin and Councilor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question is, as far as the overrun goes, how can we look at it, how can we really say it's a budget overrun until we know what revenues we've generated? It's just a budget overrun in regards to the revenue that we've received in the past from just the junior Bs, but we operate it as a business. So it shouldn't be till the end of the year before we know whether or not it's actually an overrun, because we may be renting ice, or we may rent ice that previous isn't rented. Because we don't operate, I don't believe, the arena as per the junior Bs, and whether or not we give them a better deal, and that's an overrun, or the skating club, and whether or not we give them a different deal, that's an overrun. It's only a budget overrun, I believe, because they're getting a different ice rate than they did last year. It's not a budget overrun as far as the revenue generated by the arena. Just what I look at, because we operate it as a single entity, not each individual organization. And this is clarifying that it's only a budget overrun because of the loss of revenues from the junior Bs.
Ms. Morrow, can you explain, or Mr.
Through you,
Sauer?
Mr. Mayor, we budgeted that amount as a revenue upon council recommendation. We budgeted that amount as a revenue was included. That revenue was included in the 2016 budget. So we will not receive those revenues. It's an overrun because of that shortfall.
But if our, say, okay, so then you budgeted the revenue for 2016 also. So if our budgeted revenue for 2016 was 200,000, and at the end of the year we brought in 210,000, we got a surplus of 10,000. That's why I look at it. We need to wait until the end of the year. Sure, we budgeted the amount we were going to get from the junior Bs, but it's only a budget overrun if the total amount of revenue we're expected to get at the arena, we don't meet that. Then it's a budget overrun.
Councilor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My first question is, what other teams are paying full price at the arenas that might be impacted by this decision? For you to...
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Neal. Everybody pays the full rate. There's three different rates, and there's a daytime rate, a non-prime time rate, and a prime time rate. Prime time rate is any hour on a weekend, Saturday or Sunday. It's also any time after 4 o'clock to 11 p.m. on a weekday. There's a daytime rate that's 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Monday to Friday. That's $120. Then there's a non-prime time rate. That's the really, really hard hours. That's we open the arena at 5 o'clock. That's like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and anything after 11 p.m. on a weekday. And that varies both in either arena. One rate in the new arena is, I believe it's $97, and in the old arena it's $86. Currently, subsidized ice users, there's only 3 groups that can subsidize ice. That's the Thorold Figure Skating Club, Thorold Amateur Athletic Association, and the Thorold Junior Bs. The Thorold senior team pays full rate for whatever hour they use on whatever day or time.
I would imagine the Thorold mounts pay the same rate too.
Thorold mounts, as of 2 years ago, pay full rate now.
And so there's at least a couple of other teams that are paying full rate. So if we decide to go with the report that we have in front of us, then we're gonna have to look at those other two teams because, you know, if one of them gets the subsidized ice time, then I would imagine that from my perspective to the other two teams, if that's the two other teams, they would be asking for subsidized ice at the same rate. I have another issue regarding this because I know that I've talked to a couple other councilors that might have another suggestion regarding it combining with the boards. And so I'm not sure whether I want to defer it yet without some other councilors commenting, but I think maybe this should be deferred until at least we talk about the board advertising, whether it's tonight or another time too.
Councilor Whalen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I get an idea? I know it's kind of rough, someone's got a calculator. If we reclassify the non-prime time at 4 o'clock till 5 or 5:30 is regular ice time, practice time? The 4 o'clock on the weekends, is that 4 to 5? The Jimmy B's use presently?
On the weekend,
No, anytime, maybe weekdays.
we changed that 4 p.m. 4 to 5 would be prime time.
But they regularly use the ice time from 4 to 5, is that correct?
They use practice, they use 18 hours from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. And they use 35 hours from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. They get a special rate. All their ice is $132.32 an hour, whether it be prime time or non-prime time. But the regular off-the-street user, 3:30 to 4:30 would be given the daytime rate of $120. Somebody from 4:30 to 5:30 would be paying prime time.
So I would imagine also that it'd be a hard ice time to get rid of at 4:30 in the afternoon.
4:30, it's a challenging hour to get rid of, that's correct.
So what impact on our budget would we have if we reclassified the practice times at 4:30 to 5:30 to the reduced rate, but leave the game times to the going rate? Can we get an idea of what that would occur? Was there 70 or 75 hours over the year, I believe?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Whalen, if I understand correctly, the game hours at full rate?
That's right. Just wondering what the comparison would be, shuffle around with the impact. It's a different ballgame at 4:30 in the afternoon if we're not able to get rid of it. It'd be a shame to take the full rate if we can't get rid of it.
Shouldn't take. Sort of. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Whalen. If my math's correct, I did it really quick. A lot of pressure. The game rate, the prime time rate, if we get I had staff prepare this this is based on 2015 total, which is accurate. It'd be an increase of $5,000, $5,000 approximately, that the city would gain positive. If you reduce the 3:30 and 4:30 ice times for practices to $120 from their regular rate of $132, that's what you wanted. From the 3:30 to 4:30 ice time, you lose about 1,000. From the 4:30 to 5:30 p.m., you lose about 2,000. Doing what you suggested, you net about $2,000.
Would it be a decrease in what they're paying right now?
Yeah.
By
No,
2,000?
it would be an increase of $2,000.
But they're paying higher than that now, they're going down to 120. It'd be decrease, correct?
But you said to take the 81 hours from the games at a prime rate of 190, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's a net difference between the two.
Correct.
Reducing the one, but increasing the other.
The practice, on the practice scenarios, you lose about $3,000. In the game scenarios, you gain about $5,000.
So it'd be net of $2,000
Correct.
compared to the 4,400 we're looking at right now. Can I put that motion on the floor? Yes, or amendment?
Can you repeat your motion?
So we asked for going rate for the ice time for the games, but reduce the practice time down to 120. It's not applying ice time. So it'd be a minimal impact, but not a big one.
Sorry, I'm having trouble. So you're dropping it 2%.
Pardon me?
You're dropping it 2%. Your motion is to drop the 2%.
That's right, so we reflect these
And
two.
also to drop the practice rate to 120.
120, correct.
That's it.
That's right.
Okay. Charge 190 for game time,
The going rate.
the full rate,
Yes, which is what Mr. Akers.
190. I just want to make sure
The prime time.
we're going to be charging them full rate for game nights.
That's right.
That's 190 an hour.
I think it's a little bigger, larger than that, so Mr. Akers can.
But is it Mr. Akers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Prime time rate is currently it's 190.72. We didn't increase rates this year, however, beginning on August 1st, there will be a $5 building reserve fund for the arena. So the rate will be 195.72.
So if you calculate that into your rough
No,
guesstimate.
no, it's not.
I just want to get the wording right here.
We just asked the going rate time.
The going rate plus the $5.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I understand it, the motion is as follows, that staff be directed to charge $120 for practice time for the junior Bs and the full rate for game time. And I'm not going to quote the game time full rate.
That's fine.
Okay, everybody's aware of the motion? Ask for speak. Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Aker, just want to confirm that that's as long as those practices are within those peripheral hours, not prime time practices.
Speakers to the motion. Councilor Ugolini, Councilor Leon, and I think I saw Councilor Longo's hand up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to defer this item. This item's tied to a much bigger picture, and it all has to be worked on to get it right.
The motion on the floor is defer, no debating the deferral motion. So I will call the question on the deferral. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That report has been deferred. I don't know till when, our next meeting, Mr. Sawchuk, maybe, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's our information won't necessarily change, so if the council wants to discuss at a later time, if they want to provide us with more.
Can you also add a byline to the report with Councillor Whaling was?
Yes, we can. And we'll provide that information back to council for their discussion. If they want to bring it back up at the next meeting, we can be prepared for that.
Thank you. Okay, that's been deferred. Just going to move on to, seeing that there's so much interest in the board rate. I get a mover to move DOR 2016-23 forward, so that these people can go home at least an hour. Councillor Whalen, or Councillor Neal?
So,
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The last,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendations are, number one, that the exclusive advertising rights be awarded to New Stadium Media for 3 years commencing July 1st, 2016, for a 3-year total of $59,325. That the appropriate bylaw authorizing the execution of the agreement be forwarded to council for approval at a future council meeting. That the Thorold Amateur Athletic Association and the Thorold Figure Skating Club each receive $1,600 of value from the city annually for these proceeds. That a budget overrun in the amount of $3,200 for the city's considerations to the Thorold Amateur Athletic Association and the Thorold Figure Skating Club be approved. So concludes the report.
thank you. Could I get a mover for the report? Councillor Piano?
Yes, could I also like to defer this report as well?
There's another deferral motion on the floor. There's no debating the deferral motion. I'll call a question on the deferral. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And now we'll move to the top of the agenda. Legal.
Sorry, I came to ask from my reasoning.
Yeah, it's basically legal advice.
Just seek out legal advice, yes.
And we have lawyers working on that right now as we speak. Okay, we'll move to the top of the agenda, which is DOR 2016-14, purchase of a new front mount diesel riding lawnmower. Mr. Dunsmore, I put. Mr. Akridge.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is that staff be authorized to purchase one new front mount diesel riding lawnmower to replace light equipment as identified in 2016 general equipment replacement schedule from Benberg Farm Industrial at a cost of $25,781.91. So concludes the report.
Thank you. Could I move for the report? Councillor Sharon.
Move the report.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DOR 2016-15, purchase of a new half-ton extended cab four-door pickup truck. Mr. Akridge.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is that staff be authorized to purchase one new half-ton extended cab four-door pickup truck to replace light equipment as identified in the 2016 general equipment replacement schedule from Performance Chrysler at a cost of $25,065.52. So concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Akridge. Can I get a mover for the report? Councillor Ugolini. Speakers to the report. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know the staff can answer this question or yourself. Does the region ask for fleet purchases when you buy a lot of vehicles? Can we do something, or does the regions do that, or just buy vehicles the same way we do?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they do fleet purchases, but What we've been told by the dealers is that on fleet, for any municipalities, there's only about a $300 or a $300 to $500 markup on vehicles. We're getting rock bottom price. There's no advantage of getting tied into the region. What it will do is delay our ability to purchase by having to wait for their RFPs to go out. We already get fleet prices, which are equivalent to the region prices.
That's very good to know, thank you. I'll call the question, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. DOR 2016-16, purchase of a 75 horsepower tractor, bucket, and plow. That's it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is that staff be authorized to purchase one new 75 horsepower tractor, bucket, and plow to replace light equipment as identified in 2016 general equipment replacement schedule from St. Catharines, New Holland, at a cost of $73,725.12. So concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Akridge. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Jeremy, speakers to the report. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DOR 2016-17, Thorold South Sanitary Rehabilitation Consultant Award. And I believe that's Mr. Dunsworth.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's recommended that council approve the award of the Thorold South Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Design, Tender, and Contract Administration to Portec Engineering at a cost of $68,965 plus HST, and that the appropriate bylaw authorizing the execution of the agreement be forwarded to council for approval at a future council meeting.
So, Mr. Dunsworth, can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Neal.
So moved.
Speakers to the report. Councilor Hanley.
Yes, just a report in regards to sanitary, how much money, millions have we spent out there so far? How many millions have we spent in regards to what we're actually trying to accomplish?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, money that is spent in Thorold South, probably in the neighborhood of $9 million, give or take, on CSO tank plus some pipe repairs, which probably were due anyway, and then some studies and so forth.
And my question is to you, after $9 million, are we allowed to increase the amount of housing? Or no, still that we can do within the regards? And the reason I'm asking that is I know that all the councils I've met here with the developer out there, we've been given a significant amount of information, and they tell us otherwise. But for $9 million, we haven't been able to expand upon our development out there. I'll approve it tonight, but I can't see myself approving another dime in Thorold South and what we've been spending on it. Because in honest, the research that I've done myself, I've never known from one area to be spending so much amount of money to no resolution to this day. That's just my own personal opinion.
Mr. Dunsworth.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask councils a little bit more indulgence on that front. As our report, our full bond report reported back in December, I think it was, that we need to do some flow monitoring after we finish this work. And once we do that, then we will be able to answer that question a little more conclusively.
And now, Mr. Sawchuk, and then I'll go back to you, Councilor White Hanley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add to that we have a lot of work still to do on a regular course of asset replacement in Thorold South. You are going to see reports come forward on more sewer replacements in Thorold South because they're in the correct condition. And as you will see throughout the town as well, we have lots and lots of old pipes out there that aren't simply directed. We're not focusing on this problem in order to facilitate development because we have serious problems in that area, and the people in the neighborhoods in Thorold South need relief from these problems. So you will see reports come forward recommending further works. I just want to prepare council for that.
That's good, Mr. Mayor. I'm waiting for the reports to come forward because I have some information myself too, and plenty of questions to ask in regards to that. But myself personally, is the amount of as far as the flow metering goes, with 1 mile metering goes, what will we really accomplish for the $9 million we spent, as far as I'm concerned, is extremely minimal. And that's my personal opinion. Whatever every other council, that's their own personal opinions too, but for me, we haven't been getting nowhere. What I'm feeling is a bang for the buck. And as far as coming to a resolution to this problem, as far as I'm concerned, we're at the same place we were when we started. No further development, period. That's what this was all about at the beginning, I believe.
Okay, I can add to that question because it's nice and fresh in everybody's mind. Okay, after we do this new construction, how long will the next round of flow monitoring take? A year? Is it another year after the construction?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the intent of the next round of flow monitor, the intent of the program as we're sitting right now is to do this work through the summer, and then in the fall through to Christmas time, more or less, we are going to do some more flow monitoring to verify our results.
So we'll go about 3 months of flow monitoring.
Yes.
At the most. I'll hold you to that.
Okay.
One other question while it's fresh in everybody's mind. You know, for years and years and years, a lot of the people out in the Thorold South, they've suffered from basement flooding. So over the past year, how many complaints, I don't know, have the complaints decreased substantially over, say, the last year since all the repairs we put in there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they have significantly decreased. During our flow monitoring exercise that we did back in the spring and summer of 2015, we did not experience any basement flooding. Some of that is attributed to our private side disconnection and backflow prevention program, and we did see systematic surcharging, and that is what we're trying to eliminate at this point in time. But we did not see any basement flooding in the area, but we also didn't see 100-year storms. So
that happens every 2 years.
So,
go ahead.
May I need to clarify what Mr. Taylor said. So while we are not seeing basement flooding, we are seeing circumstances which facilitate basement flooding still. The sanitary sewers are still surcharging, but backflow preventers are preventing them from getting to the basement. So the basement flooding itself isn't a direct indicator of progress, even though we have made substantial progress, to Councillor Hanley's point. We are still seeing system surcharging in fairly moderate storms. We've made some very good gains on the north side of Beaver Creek, less so on the south side of Beaver Creek, where we are now concentrating our efforts. But basement flooding directly through complaints are being more often addressed because the people who are getting flooded are coming to us for our flood relief program, having sump pumps and backflow preventers installed. So while they are not getting flooded in their basements, they can't use their facilities while there's a storm. So the problem has mitigated by they're not getting the sewage in their basements, but they will flood themselves out when they use their facilities during the rainstorm.
Thank you. I apologize for butting in Councillor Neal and Councillor Whalen. I don't think you're both up. So Councillor Neal?
Just to make a question or a comment is that, I guess my question is, how do we get development to happen in Thorold South? What's the plan of action to make it happen so that instead of 300 or 400 houses that are being built there now, that 2,000 or 3,000 houses are built like the original plan was? What's our plan to make that happen?
I'll let you answer, Mr. Dunsmore, then I can add to that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our plan right now has a few points to it. First of all, we've identified these problems in our reports from Associated Engineering, GM Blue Plan. And we've identified these areas as being a specific concern. So we are going to repair them as quickly as we possibly can. We are also going to continue to do some more flow monitoring in the fall to help identify how much sewage we've actually taken, or how much water we've actually taken out of the sewage system. And then third, the region is currently going through their water wastewater master planning study, And as part of their master planning study, they are going to identify a infiltration rate, or they're going to attempt to identify an infiltration rate that is an acceptable level of infiltration into the system. And if we can achieve infiltration of less than that number, whatever it is, and it hasn't been determined just yet, then we will be able to move forward with development accordingly.
And that regional master plan comes to regional council in November of this year. So there will be some good information coming out in the fall. Okay. Any other questions on this report? Okay, I'll call a motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, DOR 2016-18, engineering report, White Arena.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's recommended that staff be directed to carry out the capital works identified in option 3 of the report, including necessary revised structural reinforcements to the White Arena to prolong its life as long as possible, to be determined by year by structural inspection. That the balance of the $1 million budget allocated to these capital works be redirected to capital needs in the Doherty Arena, selected from the prepared list of priorities, and that a plan for eventual replacement of the White Arena be considered during the 2017 budget deliberations. If there are any questions on of a technical matter, we have a senior structural engineer from El Santo here, Mr. Robert Rollings. That concludes the report.
Can I get a move for the report? Councillor Whalen. Speakers to the report? Councillor Whalen. Councillor Sharon. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor. Question to you, to our Director of Operations, with the diversion of the $1 million from the White to the Doherty, how close will that get us to finish up the retrofit of the Doherty Arena?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as suggested in the original ACOM report, there are about $3.2 million in repair works in the Doherty Arena as well. So again, I don't have a solid estimate on the revised scope of work that we're suggesting, which we should be able to get fairly quickly. But one of the things I would suggest recommending moving forward with, I've been having some discussions with architects and engineers who have had experience with floors built in the 70s and 80s, and there are occasions where they are suddenly failing without any preliminary identifications. So one of the works I would suggest, I've moved up on the priority list, is to come up with engineering drawings to move forward with a floor replacement sooner rather than later in the future in the Doherty. It's 44 years old now, and I think that we're possibly getting close to exposing ourselves to losing a season on it.
So it's money we've already allotted to Doherty this year. Are we 2/3 of the way there? So, or is that over and above what we already allotted?
3 years from there, there's still a couple of $100,000 identified for the White in the report. So we'd be.
What I'm saying is, with this diversion of this million from the White to the Doherty, are we within about $1 million of finishing up the White, or are we still going to need $2 million after that?
The Doherty, you mean, sorry?
Yes.
As according to the ACOM report, there's $3.2 million. So if we spend, say, $700,000 even on the Doherty this year, that still leaves us with $2.5 million in rehabilitation to go.
Quite a ways to go yet.
It's identified over a stretch of period. Does it have to be done all at once?
Okay, Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things I did before I started reading through this was I had printed out a hard copy so I could actually look at it, underline it, and go through it. It's the most complicated thing I've seen in the number of years that I've sat on council, with no answers in almost every case. All kinds of questions from everyone who seems to have looked at this whole problem. And I'm talking to the people who have lived with it for a long time, so I'll sit and talk this way instead. The reality is that other than the recommendations that are made here, I see no other plan at all at this time that we can actually move forward to. The reality is we have two buildings. One of them is over 80 years old. One of them is one of a kind in Ontario. To do things to try to keep on maintaining is what's clearly put out in this statement is that you have to look at the maintenance costs and you have to look at replacement costs. The formula that was put forward there is never going to be met because when you build new, you build better, and therefore the cost of building is going to get higher as the cost of maintenance. So I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where we have that fraction set up properly of what maintenance now indicates replacement should be in order to do that. But I saw that Schultz was involved with this whole report as well. I know that he's a heritage person. I know that he very much would prefer to save over get rid of and try to rebuild. Yet at the same time, he asks the same big questions and comes up with no answers for a lot of the questions. He has answers for some, but not all of them. And I think it's because, when you look at it really carefully and you read it, and I read it over more than once, you have to come to the conclusion that this is not just ice, this is safety. We are looking at a building that is old enough that we really have to be concerned with safety. And there are things within the white arena that, because of the way over the years the painting was done, the trusses and other things of that nature, we have problems that are hidden, maybe. We have problems we're not aware of, more than likely. And to have answers to them are really, really difficult. Although I learned a lot of words and what they meant by looking them up and trying to figure out what it is, at the same time I came to the conclusion that the recommendation to do what absolutely has to be done is identified in the white arena right now is reasonable, so it can be dealt with, we can use it for another year, and my grandson and everybody else's kids can ski it safely, and not worry about the wind and the rain and the snow weight and everything else on the route. And at the same time, we have to look ahead at what do we do to replace this arena, and can't keep on pouring a lot of money into that one when at the same time we're trying to support the newer one. And it's very ironic, the age of the newer one. I think back to the fact that I played hockey as a kid in this arena, and it wasn't young then. It makes me really, really understand exactly the age and the issues that we're dealing with. The newest part of that arena is the new change rooms. 98, there was a big election debate over these new change rooms we put in. I went to put water in my grandson's water bottle, and the tap wasn't working properly in the new addition to it, never mind the existing building. All that being said, the reality is what's recommended here makes sense to me. The reality is that this is going to be an ongoing problem for a long time before we finally solve it. And the reality is, in my mind anyway, that we are going to end up replacing at least the white arena, and where it goes and what part of the community it's serving at that point in time. All those things have to be dealt with there, and they're not even dealt with here. And for obvious reasons, they're not dealt with here. We're looking at the actual life of this building. So I strongly recommend to the rest of the council that we support this, and we go forward with it in a step-by-step process, year and year at a time, until we finally have a plan and know where we're going and how we're going to deal with it, and then we can actually start planning to make sure that we can do that at the appropriate time before a safety problem becomes the major issue we're talking about. Thank you.
I have Councilor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad former Principal Sharon said you had a hard time understanding these reports, because I read them over a number of times on the weekend, and they are a little bit confusing. Some seem to contradict others. I always thought engineering was a science, but maybe not so much. But I agree with what Councilor Sharon says there. I have a hard time pumping money into this building to try to modernize it when it may not have many years left. Putting cladding on and modernizing some of the components inside. I don't know if that's the best way to spend money. And that's what I said when I ran for council. I told people I'd spend their money like it was mine. And if this was my building, I wouldn't spend money on it to any extent. The report says that the building's safe. That's very important. That's what I want to know. I want to know it's a safe building. And we have annual inspections that confirm that. That's very important. But if this was my building, if this was my second car and it needed to limp along, I'd have it limp along and spend a minimal amount. It's 80 years old. Things wear out. Things depreciate. I'm sure we've depreciated this building over time. Everything comes to an end. This building's going to. Maybe it'll be in a year. Maybe it'll be in 10. It might be in 20. But it's coming to an end. And I can't see putting good money after bad. And that's what I believe we may be doing here. So I support this report, even though, again, it is a bit confusing and contradictory in some areas. But I think that's the best way to approach it. Spend the minimal amount, let's keep it running, let's keep it usable, and if worse comes to worse, we'll make decisions at that point. But maybe we need to start to put away a little bit of money every year for the eventuality.
I have Councilor Pio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with my fellow councilors and previous speakers with regards to having reservations of continuing to sink money into this. My inclination is to go even further. I actually am hesitating to spend any money on this. The current state of the arena is safe, and I agree with Councilor Long, but that is the main thing I want to know at this point. If it was exactly $200,000, I might be persuaded. But the big question mark that made me wonder about that is that the $200,000 is an estimate based on many unknowns. We're not sure, once they start doing this, that it won't go substantially higher than $200,000. The $200,000 is based on the report without knowing what's behind the trusses that were inaccessible because of paint. And that's the Alsenko report. The $200,000, I think, is based on the Alsenko report estimate, which has 4 parts: piers, the trusses, the foundation, the new collar ties. All adds up to $200,640. That, by the way, excludes engineering fees and HST, so it's actually a little more than that. But then if you look at Schultz's engineering report, they have similar recommendations, but they don't put a price tag to them. They say none of the above works are priced pending detailed inspection. So we don't actually know exactly how much it might cost once we start putting that $200,000 in. I'm inclined to not put any money into this until we at least have those detailed inspections. Right now, it's usable. When I look at the report to tell me how much time the $200,000 will buy us, and it could be substantially more than $200,000, I can't see an actual estimate of how much time, if any, it'll buy us. We may be pouring $200,000 plus into there, and we actually are buying no extra time than if we just didn't put any money into it. If it was exactly $200,000, that's probably the upper limit, and I might go for it. But it doesn't seem to be $200,000. It seems to be $200,000. First of all, excluding engineering and HST, so it's at least $250,000. And then on top of that, there is unexplored trusses that we don't know what the state of it is. And once you commit yourself to doing this $200,000 worth of work, and you peel back the paint on the areas that were inaccessible, and you find that those need substantial work, who knows how much more you're going to put in, because at that point you're committed to do it. I think if and we don't know if it's going to buy us any extra time. If we had at least an estimate of, say, 5 years for the $200,000, I would think that'd be money well spent, but the $200,000 gives me no guarantee that we're going to gain any more time from this arena than if we don't put in the $200,000. I'm inclined to not support recommendation 3 at all. I would like to go with option 2. Do we continue monitoring? And at the next budget meeting, discuss exactly what the long-term plan, including possibly doing what we're planning to do now, are. The other thing that concerns me about this is, I remember back to the budget meetings that we had for the 2016 budget, and the $1 million we were putting towards the arenas seemed to be primarily for the Doherty, which I fully support needs to be repaired. That's our main asset when it comes to hockey and other uses of arenas in Thorold. And there was some money put in for the White arena, and I believe the main one was the transformer and a few other. Could I get that clarification from Mr.
Through you,
Sargent?
Mr. Mayor, what it is the transformer, the power supplies for both arenas. So that'll have to be done regardless. There is a receiver that needs to be replaced. The TSSA in their annual inspection recommended a replacement of a high pressure vessel. I believe we budgeted $30,000 for that. That may, if I recall correctly, we may have even budgeted that as a separate item. But those were the minimum works that had to go forward.
Thank you. That's what I recall. And if I could just finish my line of thought here, when I agreed to the $1 million in the 2016 budget, I agreed to some of it being spent on the White Arena because of those minimal things that needed to be done. And now somehow we are talking about spending $200,000, and then what's left over, somehow the $1 million project for the Doherty, with some going towards the White Arena, seems to not have been transformed into repairing the White Arena, and then what's left over going towards the Doherty. If there's $800,000 left over, I could agree to that. But what I'm concerned with is the way this is worded, and I'll ask the question through our Director of Operations. If we get into this, and it looks like it's substantially more than $200,000 because of the exploration of the trusses that couldn't be explored, do we continue on and take more of that $1 million away from the Doherty?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question, and I'd like to clarify. And I apologize for the complexity of the report, but I needed to pass that confusion on because there are very many conflicting and contradictory opinions about the structural nature. We will not be doing, in the recommendation, we will not be doing an invasive study. We won't be peeling the paint back. We will simply, the recommendation is that we fix the masonry on the pilasters, which is infiltrated to the pillars, which will, reasonably stop any more water infiltration to decay the pillars. And strapping, where the pillars meet the trusses, there's a joint which has a cable system. On some of the pilasters, or on some of the pillars and trusses, that there isn't one. So we were suggesting put that on where it is. Mr. Schultz suggested further that the purlins are the steel members that connect the trusses. The trusses are the overarching wooden parts. Purlins are the steel members which attach them for lateral strength, and Mr. Schultz is suggesting reinforcing some of those. So those are the basic works. We won't be doing any further investigation. All we'll do is monitor on an annual basis to check for cracking, splitting, or movement. We won't go anywhere than we suggest. The trouble is that I don't know the scope of that work, and you're very correct. And until we spend some money to design that much, we can spend a little bit more on engineering to come up with an estimate. I don't think it'll be very much, but we would have to spend more money for a more firm answer. If you would like, we can bring that more exact cost back to council for the reconsideration. In the meantime, moving forward with. But to answer your other question that you suggested is that what I did in this recommendation was take the spirit of the discussion during the budget meetings, and council desired to spend $1 million on arenas. So that is a given. We have two different approaches, and one of them, as you suggested, I was asked to put a priority list together. If I had $1 million to spend on the arenas, what would I do? And I put that priority list forward. And there was a general agreement among councillors that we had two arenas that needed work, and they wanted to see that start to go forward.
Yeah, that's it for now. I'd like to hear what others have to say.
Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to tell you what I think happened in that budget. That budget, we talked about spending $1 million on the arenas. Then we had the second engineering report. And we decided, okay, if we can get 20 years out of the old, let's spend the money, which was going to be around $600,000. Mike wasn't happy with the second report. He didn't feel confident. So he asked council if we could get a third independent review, which we did. When we got the third review back, it agreed with the second review and said that if we spend that money, we could roughly estimate to get 20 to 25 years. So when we passed the budget, we decided that we were going to spend roughly $600,000 to $650,000 on the old, and the remaining money was going into the Doherty with the to-do list, and that was the wish list. So in truth, we have already approved by council to spend over $600,000 on the white, and that you can go back in the budget notes and you'll find that's exactly what we did. Now, I don't have a problem with what we do or how much we spend. What I have a problem with in this whole thing is the procedure. We as council, on the recommendation of the Director of Operations, got the third report. Based on the third report, we made a decision. Now, we got a fourth report, which was never commissioned by this council. Not that I'm saying it's not a good report, but I think the Director of Operations should have came to council and said, I still don't feel comfortable, I want a fourth report, and it would have been up to us to decide if we wanted to make that report. So now we're stuck here with, you know what we're stuck with? Utter confusion. Because every report has a different twist on it. And the fourth report is done by the people that did the first report, which is naturally going to slant towards the first report. Not that it's wrong. And I don't care, at the end of the day, I agree, safety is the most important issue. But that's what we decided. And I think everybody here better go back in their notes and realize what we decided as a council. Now, if we're going to change that, that's fine. But let's not make questions here that we didn't know what we were going to do or we weren't going to spend this money. Because we agreed to spend over $600,000 on that arena. And if we're going to change our mind now, that's fine. And we're going to transfer that money over to the other arena. But let's get our facts straight here. That's what we agreed to as a council. So tonight, if we agree to option 3, then we're agreeing to change what we agreed to do at budget, which I still don't have a problem with, but that's the facts.
Mike, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just modify position on that, Councilor Ugolini. I put forward, as you suggested, a request of council to provide some additional engineering information. That information was not supplied by the third report. I could not move forward. There was engineering information missing, and I clearly told council I needed additional information, that this project could not go forward without it, because there were a number of things that I'd asked for which didn't show up in the report. So in the CBO's absence during his vacation, that's when I asked for that additional engineering report to come forward. When he returned from his vacation, he went and got another engineering report that didn't ask for what I had recommended to council. I needed to know whether or not there was any issue that had to be dealt with the footing movement. There were also gaps in the reports that had to be answered and weren't answered by the report. And I think council will remember a very impassioned plea that I made to council that we did not have sufficient engineering information to move forward. Now, I expected, as I explained in the report, for an amalgamation of those issues and the gaps to be filled. They were not filled in that second report. Had I authored that second report or procured it, I would have. Those earlier reports weren't shown to the following engineers to answer those questions. So I can't answer for that middle report, Councilor Ugolini.
So then we got the third report. When the third report comes,
That's-
you should have said to us, I still need more information. And that, you never did say that, okay? That's my problem, Mike. And that's not to say that we didn't need more information, but you should have directed that to council.
I'm sorry, point of order, you need to go through the mayor, not direct. I'm sorry, with all due respect, you have to go through the mayor.
He's right. I have Councilor Longo, then Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here because there's so many different opinions going on. I agree with Councilor Ewing. The money was allocated for the old arena. But with new reports coming on, things seem to have changed. So the question I wanted to ask was, Councilor Neal brought up questions about what really needs to be done. And Director of Operations mentioned there's somebody here who may have some answers. Could we bring him forward to answer some of Councilor Payne's?
You have to put that motion on the floor, and council have to vote for that.
Could I ask that we bring the engineer who's provided the last report to come forward and give us a little bit more information and clarity?
All in favor? That's carried. Mr., please give us your name. Please speak close to the mic. What question, do you have a question for me, Councilor Longo?
I hope he heard Councilor Payne's concerns. I just wondered if he could comment on those.
What in particular?
Basically, what needs to be done at the old arena, whether when you get into the work, could it possibly need more work? What is it we're trying to do for the $200,000 or less, I believe it says?
Yeah, I think it is much less. It's not the 200,000 from the first report by Steelcon. As you rightly said, the Schultz report doesn't put a figure against the works they're identifying. So I think it's much less than 200,000, and I think basically it's just the master block work repairs. There's a lot of cracking on the east elevation in particular. So it's repairing that to stop water ingress, and the repaired wall will also identify any ongoing movement. New cracks are much easier to spot should there be movement occurring, and also Schultz have identified just some purlin repairs and purlin connections. So they're just focusing on that. They're not, my understanding, they're not actually proposing doing any investigative work on the main trusses. And as you rightly say, as soon as you get into doing that type of work, yes, who knows where that might lead in terms of extra repairs and extra costs.
Go ahead, Councilor Longo.
So, are you confident we can keep this under $200,000?
Well, I'm not on the cost side, and I haven't really seen any quotes apart from just the one from Steelcon originally, which I think 154,000 of that was for works on trusses.
Okay.
So,
And how long has this current crack block situation been there? How long has water been
I think it's
infiltrated?
2009 it started off, and there have been a few episodes of movement of the cracks opening up on the ground at the head of the bank. There's quite a steep bank down on that east side. So there's other indications of some movement occurring there. And just point out that all the cracking that we're seeing on the east side, there's much less on the west side. So you kind of suspect that there is some ground movement related to the steep slope in that area.
So in your professional opinion, would you do the repairs?
I think it's reasonable to. I mean, it's obviously very political, and I understand all the concerns and the issues and the pros and cons. But I think the minimal repairs is really all that is worth doing. And I think close monitoring on an annual or possibly even a shorter basis is the way to proceed. We're looking at deterioration in condition or ongoing movement as being something that we're trying to spot. And yes, there will come a time, should that happen, when remedial works will be required. And then you're at a point, do you actually do those, or do you just pull the plug and say, no more works, we've got to replace this arena now?
And one final question, are you confident that the annual inspections maintain the building as a safe structure?
I think so. I don't know what else one could do. Maybe tighten up the intervals, maybe 6 monthly. I've not personally actually been up in a man lift to see the trusses close up. So my involvement has just been in recent months, just looking at the structure, ground level. But I mean, it's 80 years old. It's a very unusual structure. There's been an awful lot of strengthening done. And talking about the 25-year horizon for life, for any remedial works. If you look back, I mean, the first main remedial works were done in 77. And then in the 26 years that followed that, there were 2 further sets of repairs done, even adding steelwork and just for ongoing developing issues. So I don't think anyone can say, well, we do this work now, it's going to give you 25 years extra life. That's just unrealistic.
Thank you for your comments, and sorry about the personal shot of what engineers. It's just
Okay, I have Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to the presenter. Hey, first of all, thank you very much for coming back tonight. It's appreciated for you to speak to us. I believe your firm has been doing the inspection for a good number of years now. Was it yourself or was it yourself?
No, it was my predecessor. So I have to say, I haven't actually seen the trusses close up.
So I guess you can't give an idea when you first started inspections if it's deteriorated much since that time, or?
No, not really. No, I can't say that.
Because you hope appreciate, I believe it was back in the 70s that this place was condemned. I remember not having the ice service back then, so I was wondering, like, since the remedial work has been done, has it deteriorated to the point that we should have a more frequent inspection done on it?
Well, I mean, I think you're looking at signs of movement, and the movement is progressive. Certainly on the east wall, it's showing up in the blockwork. It's hard to spot any effects in the trusses themselves. You haven't got really a fixed point of reference to compare with current position to determine movement. So I can't really say sort of more than that really. Just in terms, if you ask me, is it deteriorating? I can't say really.
Mike Barr suggested the remedial work be completed to make sure that we don't have a roof caving in and somebody's safety.
Yeah, and the inspections and the monitoring for movement are the best means of actually sort of monitoring those issues.
Great, thank you.
I have Councilor Piano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really want to thank the speaker for clarifying some of the things that I had brought up. The idea of spending $650,000 in 20 to 25 years, I agree that we agreed to spend $650,000. I was in no way suggesting that we hadn't done that. However, when an issue is especially complex, you can, given new information, change your mind about how you're going to proceed. I like the 2-car analogy that Councillor Longo brought up. If you think you're going to fix your second beater car, and you think you're going to do it for $1,000, and then you go in and they find no, it's going to take $5,000. It's not. There's nothing wrong with saying I've changed my mind on it. After reading several of these reports several times, and from hearing comments such as our speaker has just said, I don't think it is realistic to think that spending $650,000 is going to buy you 20 to 25 years in that arena. As I said when I spoke earlier, if it's $200,000 or less, I can be convinced on that. And the speaker has reassured me now that, of course, I understand he can't give me a guarantee, but still, I've gotten some reassurance that it'll most likely not go over $200,000, and we get some benefit from it. So I can support the current recommendation. My main concern, which made me want to go with option 2, do nothing and monitor, was that I didn't know if, once we start this 200,000, it would go to 400,000 or more. I think I'm reassured now that it'll be at most 200,000, give or take, possibly less, and we get some benefit, and then what we do is discuss the whole issue of what we're going to do with the white arena. So I can go with the recommendation as presented by staff, but I really caution council to spend any more. Remember, it's not 200,000 we're spending. We were already spending quite a bit of money fixing the roof. We had to because it was an emergency case. So we've already started putting money into this. And I think we should go ahead with the recommendation, but then have a serious talk about whether or not the white arena just simply reached the end of its life. And it should just go out gracefully. Use it as much as possible, but don't try to force something that just isn't meant to be. So I think the money, the 650,000, that would be a nice seed money for putting into a future replacement, for example, or whatever we're going to do, as opposed to continually putting money to what could quickly become a money pit. So I will support the recommendation. Again, I thank you to speak for your words.
And I have Councilor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very quick question with, I hope is a very short answer. I'm going to ask you a question about safety and about city liability. Those are the two things that we, sitting around this table, absolutely have to take into consideration. Is this building safe for the people who want to use it, to go into it and use it? And is the city, therefore, their liability covered? Are you comfortable? I was going to say, are you absolutely positive, but I don't think that's a fair statement to make. Are you comfortable with the fact that we do what's recommended here in number 3, we do that kind of repair necessary, and then continue to monitor and put the rest of the money into the other arena, the one that's going to last much longer, and still feel that we are doing our job of ensuring safety and protecting the city and its liability for a safe, good place for people to be able to use and take advantage of when we provide recreational facilities in the school, in the city.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have Councilor Ugolini, that generated a lot. Councilor Ugolini, Councilor Neal, and Councilor Whalen.
I just want to say, reiterate, when I brought the point up about how much we said for budget, I'm bringing that up to tell you where we were, not where we're going to end up. Just so it was clear, because some people didn't seem to remember that recollection. Now, if we pick option 3, which I have no problem with, then the adjustment comes on the director of operations to put the list together and find out where we're spending the rest of that money on the Doherty. And I am happy to hear that one thing he said, because I've talked to him about it before, and that's the board's glass and ice, to me, is the next priority in that arena, because we're living on borrowed time and we cannot afford to lose that pad.
Councilor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've sat around because I what everybody else thought about it. I don't mind number 3, and I agree with Sergio that I don't want to spend any more money than I have to on this particular arena. My one question to you, sir, is if we were to demolish that particular arena, can we put a new arena in the same spot, knowing that there are spots that might cave in down the hill?
Yeah, sure. There's engineering solutions. I mean, retaining walls or caisson foundations and ties across the arena to the side, the west side. There's ways of actually putting in a newer arena, at that bank side as well.
Thank you. I think the number 3, that the plan for eventual replacement of the white arena be considered during the 2017 budget deliberations is too late. I think we've already we've really dealt with it. We looked at other aspects of it, where to put the arena, if it's gonna be a standalone arena, or whether it's gonna be right there, we demolish and build, or whether we would go with Brock University on maybe a version of what they might wanna do in the future, whether we go with Pelham, not to putting a new twin arena in there and leasing part of that facility for the extra ice time we might need. All of those factors, I think we have to start pretty soon looking at that, whether it's during a strategic planning session, that we at least start the ball rolling on that. I think it's, you know, we're looking at this and we're saying, let's patch this arena up and that, but what are we going to do in the future? Are we gonna put $100,000 a year away for the next 3 or 4 years in order to get the ball rolling on it? Like, how are we going to do it? And I think that's a more important question. I think with the past arena, as our guest has mentioned, well, what are we going to do next year, the following year, and the following year? I think we need to have a plan of action in that particular case.
There are no more speakers. I guess I'll just, Councilor Whalen, I'm sorry, you were on my list.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank staff for putting this wonderful report together. We have that brought us finally to a point where we can make a decision on what we should do with this. And the nicest thing is we're going back to the covenants. Clarified if I'm wrong here, Mike. It's done the inspection for a good number of years, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may correct, yes, they've done the annual inspection. They were not the authors of the first report. That was a different company who did the first facility analysis. Alsenco Sandwell has been doing our arena inspections since 1989,
So
and intermittently prior to that.
So she should be more familiar, so it's nice to have a positive report from them. It's great to know what we're working with now. Thank you.
Through you, that was my reasoning in bringing them in, is they had the greatest familiarity with the facility.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Let's see, the best for last and very little. What's the difference between carrying out all structural reinforcement as identified in the SteelCom Schultz report as opposed in item number 3, perform the revised structural remediation work? Are we going from Band-Aids to duct tape, or duct tape to Band-Aids? When I look at item 1 and number 3, that's the question that goes in my mind.
I can start to answer, and Mr. Rowland can correct me if I go off track. One of the additional great expenses was suggested to add steel cladding and insulation to the outside of the building, which I think at this point is spending extra money. Mr. Schultz, SteelCon originally suggested some truss reinforcement, which again, Mr. Schultz initially substantiated and then went back on further conversations because of his work in Oakville. So what we're talking about now is simply some reinforcement between the trusses, some waterproofing of the pilasters, which are the masonry works, which cover the pillars, and potentially some strapping that seems to be absent from some of the pillars. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. I spent a lot of time reading this stuff, and I'm used to reading engineering reports and documentation. I did it for too many years. Too many years I worked for engineers, so I know how one could contradict the other. And when I read these reports, you know, one engineer contradict the other engineer, and it's confusing. But the bottom line, Councilor Sharon hit the nail on the head. It's about liability and safety, and that should be the prime thing we should be thinking about. I don't want to ever, certainly don't want to be the mayor of Thorold when that thing caves in a bad storm or anything like that. I was comfortable with the $650,000 because that's what we budgeted it for. I was comfortable thinking that that kind of money, the building will last a substantial number of years, 10 to 25 years. But the arguments tonight, everybody, you know, Councilor Longo's analogy of his beater car, hit home pretty good. I agree with them in a lot of ways. Councilor Sharon hit home hard on safety and liability issues, which I agree with 100%. I'm still tossed. I would like to know, I'd like to be guaranteed that if I put $650,000 into that building, that 10 years from now, we're still using it, 20 years from now, we're still using it. It's a viable building. That I know as an engineer, you're not gonna give me that guarantee. So what do I do? Option 2, do nothing, then put inspection. I can't buy into that. Option 1, $650,000, and I'm not getting a guarantee from you as an engineer. I see the stamps, all your stamps. That's the first thing. I went through all these reports. First, I wanted to see the stamps. You and I know what that stamp means. You're putting your career on the line when you put that stamp on any engineering documentation. So that stamp is on every one of these. So that tells me you're confident in the building. But now, after all this discussion, I can understand where we should go. And as much as I hate to contradict myself, as I would have went for all along here, I was going for option 1. I listened to the discussion, and I'm not getting the guarantee that if I spend $650,000 on this building, that I'm going to get 25, 20 years, maybe not even 10. And I'd rather take that money and spend it on the Doherty Arena, upgrades in the Doherty Arena, and maybe, I don't know, see what we can get out of the white arena. Let's squeeze it for whatever we can squeeze it for. So I would, and I did, like I say, coming into tonight, I was willing to spend $650,000 flat and build it, hoping that we would get 25 years. I'm not getting that guarantee. And as Councilor Sharon said, safety and liability are the #1 issues we should be talking about.
Last so many years, since 2009, but I mean, it has been monitored closely, and you're looking at relatively small movements, maybe even seasonal movements present.
So your monitor addresses that at the same time, is that the case?
Beg
The
your pardon?
monitoring of the stature of the building monitors
Yes,
moving toward us?
we're monitoring kind of crack widths, just so you can actually see if there is some movement within the walls. But and the bank movement, there was some gaps actually opening up at the top of the bank, where soil on the slope was slipping down. But I haven't seen any reports of that, I don't think, for 4 or 5 years.
So shifting should not be concerned at the present time?
There's no indication there's any present concern.
Mr. Sajak, may I have something to add also?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, something that perhaps Mr. Rowling isn't aware of is that a number of years back, we had a complaint from the building down below that our bank was damaging their building. What we actually found out is that they had excavated for an expansion into the bank and caused some of the bank to lose its stability. So now some of the bank is actually being supported by, it appears to us, and again, I'm not going to back this up with engineering, but it appears that it's being supported by the wall of the extension. So again, that remains an unknown and a risk, but the monitoring is necessary to see whether or not that will progress in the
Thanks, Rick. Okay, any other speakers? Well, that was a very good debate, and a lot of good points came out, and I will call it a question, and if you vote yes, you're voting for option number 3, and if option number 3 gets defeated, we will look at option 1 and 2. So I'll call a question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, councilors. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to actually make a comment. I'd be remiss if I didn't do this in public forum. I just wanted to, I want to thank Mike for his commitment to public safety and public service. When he approached me on this issue, we were very concerned in how this was going to be viewed, knowing that, we were looking at a 25-year potential opportunity to make this thing work. But he was committed to ensuring that this project got off done properly and not wasting money, and also concerned about public safety. And I have to congratulate him for his tenacity and due diligence in making this come forward as it did tonight, and convincing all of council this is the right way to do it. So I want to thank you, Mike, for your commitment and your due diligence process and following through with this. Thank you.
Okay. Onward. DOR 2016-19, Project Management Contract Award, White Arena Structural Rehabilitation and Operations Center.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's recommended that the contract for project manager for the White Arena Structural Rehabilitation and Operations Center renovation be awarded to JDG Project Management for the price of $63,000 plus HST for Part 1, and the total bid price of $119,000, $119,600 plus HST for both Parts 1 and 2, only should Part 2 move forward as approved by council. And that the appropriate bylaw authorizing execution of the agreement be forwarded to council for approval at a future council meeting. That concludes the report.
Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Neal. Are there any speakers for Councilor Neal? Go ahead.
In light of what we just passed, do we need to have a project manager for just the White Arena, or can we use that project manager for both arenas? If we're going to do the $1 million is $1 million, and we're going to do $1 million worth of improvements, can we just change that recommendation slightly?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you bringing that up. Actually, I spoke to the proponent. He's absolutely willing to adjust that because his fee is based on a percentage of the total works, and he's amenable to that. Yes.
Good. So that 119,000 will go upwards.
No, it'll stay the same.
Okay. Just making sure. Any other speakers on the report? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I wanted to ask a question too. The point was that he wasn't the low bidder. That was the point I wanted to make, but go ahead.
If I may, what I did is, rather than simply low bid, is I put a value to it. So what we did is we created a chart. I had an engineering student go through all the proposals very carefully and identify how many hours the principal would spend on this project. And it came out to that absolutely the best value. So we were getting perfect value for our money. It was absolutely in the mean of all of the projects. They range from 83,000 to 152. So.
Okay, still in EOR 2016-2001, tender award, crack sealing on various streets, contract number 2016-195. Mr. Dunsmore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's recommended that the tender for contract number 2016-195, crack sealing on various streets, be awarded to Niagara Crack Sealing with the increased quantities and an estimated amount of $70,000, HXD excluded, as determined by the unit prices and quantities involved. And that the appropriate bylaw authorizing the execution of the contract and the agreement be forwarded to council for approval at a future council meeting. So concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Dunsmore. Can I get a mover for the report, Councilor Longo?
So move the report.
Are there any speakers to the report? Go ahead,
Yes,
Councilor.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager engineering. Last year, as you were aware, there were some issues with some of the crack sealing on Kiefer Road. Was the proponent made aware of that, and were there any issues they saw, or was that considered normal for it to come up the way it did?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did talk to them, and it was the spec that they provided, They are going to modify it this year to try to eliminate that from happening again. Yeah, we weren't very happy with that. What actually came off was a protective coating off the top of the crack ceiling. The crack ceiling actually stayed, the cracks actually stayed sealed. So,
Yeah, because there was quite a bit that came up, and I had quite a few calls. So
Yeah.
they're going to change the mixture, basically?
The protective layering that is put on the.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're in the finance section. DF 2016-11, Statement of Remuneration and Expenses 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that report DF 2016-11 be received for information purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. Have a mover for the recommendation. Mr. Neal. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DF 2016-13, to delegation of power and duties of council policy 100-28.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation that Schedule A of Policy 100-28, Delegation of Powers and Duties of Council, be updated to include the authority for the clerk to sign registration and discharge documents for municipal liens. And secondly, that the updated policy and bylaws be prepared and presented at a special council meeting this evening for approval. And this concludes the report.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Payon.
So move the report.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DF 2016-15, funding of the St. David's Road, Collier Road to Highway 406. This is good news.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the recommendation is that the transfer of St. David's Road be funded from the Transportation Capital Asset Reserve in the amount of $87,104 rather than the federal gas tax reserve. This concludes your report.
Thank you. Have a move for the report, Councilor Ugolini.
So move the report.
And are there any speakers to the report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Planning and Building Section, TBS 2016-13. Budget overrun, boiler compensation, regional mechanical, Niagara Inc. Ms. Herbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's being recommended that approval of a general budget overrun in the amount of $5,449.43, including HST, for the year 2015, payable to Regional Mechanical Niagara Inc. for payment of half the cost of the boiler installed at 8 Carlton Street South. And secondly, approval of a general budget overrun for the year 2016 in the amount of $811.99, including HST, for the installation of a filtration system to the boiler at 8 Carlton Street South.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert. Can I have a mover for the report? Councilor Sherrill, will you move the report, please? Thank you.
Yes, I move the report.
Speakers to the report. Councilor Sherrill.
Question, Mr. Mayor. When I looked through it, I saw that there was a difference of opinion came from the failure of the second boiler. Can you just enlighten me on what that was?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a failure of the boiler system, the initial installation, and when Mr. Wild was here, the CEO, he went back to on the warranty because it was less than a year, and because of the warranty, the company had provided another boiler, and General Mechanical had installed that boiler as well. There was another failure to that boiler, and a third boiler was put in, and Regional Mechanical was looking to the city to provide monies to install the boiler. However, there was no record. At the end of every contract, we received documentation for warranty purposes, and there was no documentation from Regional Mechanical that showed that there was any cleansing of the system and anything that showed that it was being maintained before it was handed over to us under the warranty. So feeling not having documentation here in the city in our binders, nor the company having documentation of their own. Our CAO and myself met with Regional Mechanical, and we thought a fair compromise would be to pay for half of the boiler that was installed at that time. And also as part of the recommendation, there was a number of contractors and one of our contractors that is looking after that facility also recommended the installation of a filter system that would help with preventive maintenance in the future. So that's why it's being recommended that we install the filtration system.
Thank you very much.
I think our CEO has the last add to that.
If I may as well, at the second boiler that went down, unfortunately, the manufacturer suggested that it was no longer a warranty, that there was issues surrounding fluids getting in there, therefore the filtration system should have been installed. And that's one of the reasons why we suggested to split the money in half, split the cost in half, and everybody go home and won't go into the legal process of trying to identify who's at fault here. It would cost a lot more than $5,000. So that's why we decided to go that route.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Our last report of the night is the clerk section. CC 2016-17. Establish a Canada 150 ad hoc committee. Ms. Delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's being recommended that council establish a Canada 150 ad hoc committee and approve the terms of reference as attached. That one council representative be appointed to the Canada 150 committee, and that the appropriate appointment bylaws be forwarded to a future council meeting. That concludes the report.
Can I get a mover for the report, and then we have to elect someone to that committee? Councilor Ugalini, do you want to sit on it?
I move the report, and yes, I'll put my name forward since I made the motion.
Does anybody else want to bring a name forward for that committee? No? Okay. Councilor Ugalini's on that committee. And myself. Councilor Neal.
They mentioned dissolving the committee in 2017. Well, I think the 150 goes all the way to December 31st, 2017. So I think there's probably reports in 2018. So I would suggest that we change the date to 2018 as far as the finality of the committee.
And that's, we can do that. We don't need a report or a motion.
No.
So I'll call a question on the report. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Nothing in the fire section, nothing in camera. Now move into special counsel. Moved by Councilor Pion, seconded by Councilor Sharon, that we do now rise and enter into special counsel. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Pion, seconded by Councilor Sharon, that the recommendation of the following reports be approved. DOR 2016-7, DOR 2016-14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22 and 23 were deferred. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DF 2016-11, 13, 15, EPS 2016-13, CC 2016-17. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Pion, seconded by Councilor Sharon, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaw. Bylaw number 28-2016, and that the same now be read the first time. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Pion, seconded by Councilor Sharon, that the bylaws just read the first time be read a second And third time in due custom that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council is contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Neal, seconded by Councilor Sharon, that this meeting is hereby adjourned at 9:14 p.m. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.